Warhammer 40k Mechanicus is a neat turn-based strategy game that I finished in the year of our Lord 2024, 6 years after the game's release. I beat it on normal difficulty with the Heretek expansion. Probably should have changed it to hard or above midway through the game, but oh well, we will get to that I suppose. Mechanicus reminds me of a much simplified XCOM. It's also a turn-based strategy in which one of the main focus points is building up your diverse squad with different specialties and abilities and such. In general, Mechanicus has some fantastic ideas and it does justice to the Warhammer 40k brand. The main focus of the game by far is the atmosphere and combat, with very careful consideration as to how these two intertwine. The first big whiff of this is the intro cinematic. It's just 1 minute long and it establishes who Adeptus Mechanicus are lightning fast for anyone who might not be too familiar with the 40k universe.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. I craved the strength and certainty of steel. I aspired to the purity of the blessed machine. Your kind cling to your flesh, as if it will not decay and fail you. One day the crude biomass that you call the temple will wither, and you will beg my kind to save you. But I am already saved. For the machine is immortal. Even in death, I serve the Omnissiah.
They are technological freaks who see human flesh as weakness. They love looking at random junk and furiously taking notes. And it turns out there's a planet full of very technologically advanced junk. So they get out to get it, but the junk in question belongs to, or directly is, the race of spacefaring ancient Egyptian Terminators who were ippy sleepy until you tripped their alarm system when you performed a home invasion on their tombs. You play as Magos Dominus Faustinius, at least I think that's how these words are spelled, the commander of the expedition, and you need to take responsibility for awakening the very much not man-made technological horrors from beyond your comprehension. To do this, you need to venture into the tombs, smash and grab some junk to analyze, and figure out how to stop the reawakening procedure. The mood and climate created by the devs of Bulwark Studios, who might I just add, do not even have a goddamn Wikipedia page, is just phenomenal. The team put some incredible model work on display when it comes to characters and locations. From the interior of your ship, the Caestus Metallican, you see during mission select, through its interior you see during Heretek missions, to the depths of the Necron tombs. It all looks perfect for this type of game. It all looks like a faithful imagining of the setting the game is based on, and it serves its purpose beautifully, that being to immerse you in this rich and deep world. But when things go from amazing to pure legendary status is the sound design. I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, all the weapons sound meaty, impactful, just right. And when that crit hits, you feel the biggest hit of dopamine in years. Like you are alive again and the future you always wanted is in the reach of your palm. The unit noises, ambience, footsteps, your scanner, abilities, it's just all 10 out of 10. It has been quite some time since I felt this strongly about sounds in a video game, but here we are. But what the game is truly famous for is the music. music with its disturbing deep drops and high choral elements. Just listen to Dance of the Cryptek. It's just 7 minutes and 8 seconds, after which you will be literally made anew, made better. Another dope factor of the sound design is the dialogue, because this is Adeptus Mechanicus, who literally often have no mouths, and this is a project by a small team on a small to medium-sized budget, so they all sound like a microwave trying to talk shit to you. But here's the kicker: every single one of them has their own personalized Animal Crossing-esque techno-speak. That's fucking great. What a neat way to add character to each of the characters. But then, just as you start getting used to the way Mechanicus chatter, you encounter one of the fully sentient and autonomous Necrons, one of their leaders, and he fucking speaks perfect English at you.
I have awoken into the company of these fleshly vermin. Tomorrow we conquer. Today we clear the filth from our doorstep.
This is freakish not only for the in-game characters for obvious reasons, but also for you as the player at the same time, because it comes out of the left field. Is there a finer example of less is more? Definitely the meat of this game, the gameplay. Let's start at the very beginning, shall we? When you press a new game, a window pops up allowing you a selection of 4 difficulties, with additional checkboxes for skipping tutorial, enabling Iron Man, enabling permadeath, and enabling the contents of the expansion. Furthermore, if you are dissatisfied with what each difficulty does with your game, you can completely customize the difficulty with various sliders for enemy HP, their numbers, your action points, and so on. Every single one of those things except the contents of the checkboxes can be modified mid-game. This is to say that this game is insanely, incredibly modifiable. If something bothers you about the experience, you can always check the options for a remedy. Well, this sadly will not help you with everything, but it's still a godsend, especially since the devs just straight up tell you how each difficulty and option modifies your enemies or your own troops. From there you are introduced to basic gameplay, a lot of superficial similarities with XCOM, with some game-changing differences. Your units have limited movement that is based on their current equipment and skills. Pretty basic stuff, but at the cost of a resource called cognition points, you can travel double the distance in the same turn. You can repeat this process as long as you have the resource, essentially being able to circle the whole map in one turn. This is incredibly freeing compared to something like XCOM, where map traversal could get incredibly annoying with you just moving your units and then having to end the turn with no enemies in sight, or sometimes on the whole damn map. Cognition is gathered from pylons all over the battlefield with cog icons beneath them. If you move your priest there, he drains the pillar and fills your bar at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, you have a trusty servitor skull that can gather 1 cognition point at a time, but you are most of the time making a choice between getting the point or discovering your enemy's parameters, since in this game you do not know how much defense and max HP a unit has until you scan him or use some kind of ability to analyze them. Heretek priests can equip 1 melee weapon, 2 ranged ones, and an incredibly stacked list of skills to use. Melee weapons require you to be naturally in melee range. Ranged weapons turn off completely in melee range. Each thing has its own cooldown. For all weapons it's just 1 turn, and then skills have real cooldown values. And then cost and cognition, with a lot of weapons having a variant that doesn't consume the resource, but does reduce damage compared to a version of the weapon that does. The last thing you can utilize is sort of a panic button / ace in the hole called Canticles of the Omnissiah. Canticles are powerful buffs. Well, some of them are. They can do stuff like X number of attacks completely ignore your enemy defenses, or you instantly gain X amount of cognition, stuff that you might pull out of the hat for free, but only once per the entire mission. So pick the right time. There is no cover system, there is no percentage to hit like in XCOM. If you are in range, your weapon will always hit. A very important fact is that you are fighting 40k Necrons. They sort of reanimate, thus you need to double tap them on the ground or they will get back up in a number of turns. Sadly, the gameplay is not all sunshine and rainbows, bucko. There are random critical strikes that can make or break the fight. These crits not only do crazy damage, but if you crit kill a Necron, he doesn't do the reanimation protocol. That is one offensive action you will not have to waste in subsequent turns to finish him off, which is huge. So the game is not an RNG free, everything is in your hands experience. There's just way less of it compared to the hit chance casino that is XCOM. And that's the basics. Your turn, you move, you use skills, attack, end turn, and then it's either your next unit or the enemy. The gameplay is backed up and enhanced by squad building mechanics. You have 7 skill trees that consume Blackstone, which is the in-game currency to empower your tech priests. Each node bought equals to a level up in a standard video game. You gain max HP and augment slots, which allow you to equip more powerful equipment. At the same time, every node gives you either a piece of armor, an active skill, or a passive one. With the upper cap of 25 levels, you can get to the bottom of 2 different skill trees and then get some abilities from other trees. You generally want to go down all the way on at least one of these trees because the bottom skills are fucking insane. Well, some of them are. The next step is to strap up your priests with weapons of your choice. There's quite a handful of them. Guns, healing thingies, shield generators, etc. must first be found or earned before you can equip them. The way you get weapons is usually by doing missions. Look through the list of available missions, decide which shiny toy speaks to you directly, and go. On top of all of that, you have troops too. They are like a pre-built character you can call in for cognition in the middle of the battle. They can be unlocked via missions and upgraded in the exact same way. There are a lot of troops with unique strengths and weaknesses. It will be up to you to pick out which ones you need based on what your team's weak spot is. The game sadly is at its hardest in the very beginning. You are trying to intuit all of the mechanics and your priests are at their very fucking weakest they will ever be. Then the game announces, oh yeah, you're on a timer too, by the way. For each new round, a meter fills up. When it fills up, it gains a level. Each level it builds up, your enemies are buffed. The buffs alternate between more enemies in a fight and they revive 1 turn faster. More importantly, at the end of a mission, the level number gets added to the awakening meter. This is usually between 2 and 4% for each mission that you do. When that bar completely builds up, you need to immediately fight the last boss. Everything from the start of the game till that point is building up your team to take him out. I will be real, this mechanic fucking sucks. The only thing it does is scare new players. This is not an instant game over, and before it reaches 100, trust me, you will be ready. This game's difficulty bell curve is heavily stacked towards the beginning of the game. But what this stupid meter does do is it makes sure you will never see all of the content in a single playthrough. At least I didn't, and I wanted to, which is frustrating because I do not have a second playthrough of Mechanicus in me. The game is just on the cusp of being interesting enough that I gladly beat it, even if it's longish in the grand scheme of things, but not interesting enough that I ever see myself replaying it. Long story short, try to ignore the meter if you pick this game up, and don't worry, it gets better as you go on. It always does, man. Now, it might surprise you that there is a third major component to the gameplay outside of everything you do on the ship and directly in battle. By far the least interesting one in my opinion. When you start a mission, you spawn on a virtual map of the tomb you are exploring. You click a room and your cohort moves there. There are a few tiles you can step on. The mission goal, enemy, glyph, random events, and empty tiles. Empty tiles are, well, just empty. Enemy tiles are just a randomly generated fight. The mission goal is an objective-based fight, so you know, usually pre-built, a little bit more complicated than your standard fight. Glyphs are a guessing game where you get to select from a handful of strange symbols and either get a small reward or a small debuff. Random events are text-based encounters where you get to decide what to do. And like glyphs, get a reward or punishment. Both glyphs and random events are kinda random, but it's not a big deal since they rarely affect the game in any significant way. I find this board game type of system completely unnecessary, to be honest. It did not add almost anything to the experience. In this regard, I kinda wish the game resembled XCOM more, where you pick a mission and you spawn on a map with your objective to do. Above the halfway mark of your playthrough, you will run into so many fights you know you will easily crash, but will have to play them out anyway. And brother, these animations do get insanely repetitive before you finish the game. Random events are repeated extremely often, and I just stopped reading the text box at some point. There was not a single one that was interesting to me in the game, except for some custom ones you get when you start a boss encounter, for example. The story of the game is nothing really special, so there's no point in talking about it too much. There's a big evil, and if you kill him, you win. The conversations during missions are very entertaining though, and shine a light on the Adeptus Mechanicus and how truly intricate an organization it is. Like I said earlier, the setting is realized beautifully, man, and it definitely can help to get you into the world of 40k. And now I would like to dedicate the last section of this review to the numerous flaws I found within the game. None of these were a deal breaker to me, since I have beaten the game and was extremely glad I played it by the end, but they must be stated nonetheless. Please do mind that I will be spoiling which skills and tactics utterly trivialize the game, so if you want a fresh experience where you get to discover this wonderful game all on your own, then I suggest you skip to the end or just leave. With that being said, let's get into some nitty-gritty. I have no idea why, but this game's balance is completely out of fucking whack, man. Other than the bell curve of the difficulty being heavily slanted towards the beginning, like I said earlier, there are these difficulty ratings for every single mission you do in game, right? And some of them say hard, and after beating them you are like, okay, maybe I'm over leveled for what they had in mind or something. And other missions, especially everything from the Heretek expansion, is fucking insane, while the game labels those missions easy. My first easy mission of this nature was me finding out that Heretek missions include rival tech priests that use weapons I have never seen in my life. Now I won this mission with some losses, but if I was playing permadeath, I would be some tech priests down just because a 4-letter green fucking label lied to me. Another thing is the balance on your side of the equation. 3 skill trees, shit on the remaining 4 with such vigor, you start wondering why they are there in the first place. Seer is the obvious pick for this, and you will need one on your team, especially in early game, because he's the designated medic. Now this guy, right? He has access to some healing. Everyone has if you possess these healing claws. The Seer benefits from a passive buff that reduces their cooldown and increases their healing. So great! Then he gets a skill that can heal a single person from an infinite range, which is amazing because Curatio claws require one to be right next to the person they are healing. And then he unlocks a skill that lets you heal your entire team for 1 cognition, unlike a free turn cooldown. As soon as you get this, no one on your team will die unless you really royally fuck up your positioning, which makes all of the other healing items and skills completely obsolete. Then you have the Secutor. He has god-awful skills from top to bottom. Except his very last skill on his tree allows him to instantly summon any troop anywhere on the map for 1 cognition cost. Even the Castellan robot, which normally costs 5. And you know what the Castellan robot does? He does this. And last but definitely not least, the Tech Auxilium. I consider these 3 to be the main characters of my story, but I gotta give it to the Tech Auxilium because his ability has been in play since the early game and it stayed relevant till the late game. His quote-unquote ultimate allows you to cast a canticle of your choice instantly, and it will not use it. Yeah, those insanely overpowered aces in the hall just became a regular ass ability with 3 round cooldown. This makes enemy defense stats completely obsolete, provides as much cognition as you can possibly ever want, and with the right canticle, you can emergency heal anyone. If you beat the secret missions, you unlock a canticle that completely heals every single unit in your team while filling your cognition bar. This shit is bonkers overpowered, but to be fair, you literally unlock this at the final stretch of the campaign, so you might as well have some fun. When it comes to equipment, I have 2 sorta serious issues. So the first one is, I think it's a bad design decision to allow all equipment be used by all classes. This robs the game of having interesting squad member combinations because all my guys use the exact same things that seemed busted to me. Locking certain equipment behind a requirement, for example spend this amount of points in this skill tree, would go a long way to incentivize the use of different equipment in my opinion. It would also make the class choice much more impactful. This sorta ties into my second point. I think Dominus and Explorator are awful mechanics wise. They each get really great buffs for having no melee weapon and no ranged weapons equipped respectively. And after I spec'd my tech priests into those roles, in this game with no respec options, I realized how fucking awful it feels to deny your tech priests 1 or in the case of Explorator 2 weapons. Those are free actions he won't be taking. You could finish an enemy off or deal way more damage per turn if you just spec'd into more cognition and equipped whatever crazy weapons they can carry. I could go on and on about the balance of this game, but let's just move on for the sake of time and wrap it up with some other random thoughts I have. I would like to call back to the point that this game has no cover system. This bites the game in the ass hard. You stand behind a pillar, think that an enemy has no direct line of sight, and you get zapped. Oh well, I guess it's on me for not eyeing the perfect fucking angle, but sometimes you will stand next to a complete brick wall and you get zapped. Wow, did he just get me through a window or some shoddy brickwork? What the fuck? You move your unit and nope, all projectiles just pass through this wall for some reason. There was a case where a Necron blasted me through an entire fucking building, so the cover system, or lack thereof, is a pain in the ass. I recommend slapping the portable energy shield generator on literally every unit and turning it on literally every round. You never know what shit the AI in this game might pull. Speaking of, did you know that this game can be broken? Hour 1, there's an item that gives your unit stealth until their first attack. If you never attack, your units will be perma-stealth, which allows you to touch all the computers and all the cognition points and reveal all the stats of the enemies if you have the perk for that, and complete all mission objectives while the enemies do nothing. Literally not even move. Furthermore, there are some gadgets that do not break stealth upon use, like this item that deals free physical damage and then does acid damage for 3 turns afterwards. So, as you might have gathered from everything I said, by the end of the campaign, your tech priests will be literal gods. But even then, the final boss is just so disappointing. When I killed him, I was just left with a feeling of what, that's it? With everything I said, I feel like I have to reiterate. I still had fun on the journey. The broken stuff I found had to be discovered first, which took a lot of experimenting, which I found very fun. This is a true passion project by a small dev team that did the IP justice, and I personally look forward to playing Mechanicus too. Hopefully some of the points I brought up will be addressed by then. Also, this game is not XCOM. It's not an XCOM copy or clone or whatever, but like, I think they should have stolen more mechanics from XCOM, if I'm being honest. Just not the accuracy mechanics. Never the accuracy mechanics. Please. For the effort of the devs in trying to give this game its own personality, which they gloriously succeeded in, especially impressive given the small size of the studio behind this, I will gladly give this title an 8 out of 10. I seriously recommend it. And given that on backlogged.com more people have this gem collecting dust in their backlogs rather than the number of people who actually played this, I once again ask you, instead of putting another 20 hours into League or Counter-Strike or Fortnite, why don't you play a quality ass game set in the grim dark world of Warhammer 40k? You know what? I'm not even asking anymore. I will be praying to the machine spirit every day for your router to malfunction until you get the achievement for beating the final boss. Praise be to Omnissiah.